Hey guys, Sierra coming to you a little bit, and I'm just in the back working, and I thought share my thoughts on some of the things that I've been mulling over. And I had somebody recently ask me, and if you follow me on Instagram, I made a little post about it. But I had somebody recently ask me my thoughts on whether or not hoodoo was a closed practice. And so I felt like it's worth me addressing, specifically because everybody's entitled to their own opinions. No opinion is a fact, but they are views that are strongly held. And I just want to say, I want to give a little history on why people may feel so strongly on whether or not it's a closed practice. And I'll give my opinion at the end. So, hoodoo is a culturalistic practice of spirituality, meaning it's not a religion. However, it does stem from African traditional religion. And hoodoo came about at a time when the slaves felt as though they needed not just protection from their slave masters, the people, the white people who owned them, but also healing. You see, people often miss one of the biggest aspects of hoodoo, which is medicine. Your traditional hoodoo practitioners were also your medicine healers. They're the people who you would go to, and they would give you their herbal remedy for your stomach aches or your headaches or your wounds, things like that. So, way back when, this was something that was practiced amongst the slaves. And then you would have the slave owners who would come and have them do workings for them. That's something that happened, yes. But this is where I think the concept of closed practice, aside from the fact that it stems from an African traditional religion, I want to explain why it is seen as cultural appropriation. And what that really is taking certain aspects of somebody's culture without really giving credit and acknowledgement of where it comes from, and just taking the bits and pieces and trying to make it into something that fits you. In the early 1900s, there became a distinguishing mark, I guess you could say, in hoodoo, where it really transformed and became a market for white people. White people would take the concept of hoodoo and turn it into something that was profitable for them. And so now you have the old ways of traditional hoodoo that really centered around medicine, protection, midwives, your doulas, things like that. And now it's turned into something that, is all about fixing people. Throwing hexes is how they made it out to be. Or, removing curses, bring your lover back to you. And it just became this really big thing that it was never intended to be. And who was spearheading this marketing campaign? Well, white people. Everything that I say in this part is a fact. So I'm not going to argue or debate it, And if you already have a hard time accepting this part of this history, then you know for sure hoodoo's not for you. You know for sure you're not doing it for the right reasons. But it's seen as a way to get closer to our ancestors and to our family and our roots. And it was something that was taken, just like a lot of things were taken from the African American community. And it was made into something that it was not. And so now here's the problem where it turned into something, the mainstream part of it, turned into something that created a stereotype, an image of voodoo doctors. And it made it seem as if voodoo and hoodoo were the same. And voodoo is a religion. Hoodoo is a cultural, spiritual practice. So there is a difference. But, it became very commercialized. So me explaining this without going into all the gory details, I'm going to go one step further and explain to you why it is so much of a closed practice. Because the little bit of what people saw, of what white people specifically saw in the practice, they took and then turned it into something that was marketable, something that was very commercialized, and something that was untrue. So you took a part of the culture, you took a part of the practice, and you made it into something it was not. Cultural appropriation. Then you try to grow it. You tried to grow it into something more. And that's where you started seeing these exacerbated type of publications that were put into Black communities mainly. And the bigger this commercialized version of hoodoo got, the more secretive and underground the true black belt hoodoo concept tradition went. It became so very deeply hidden that unless you really are paying attention to your elders and the things that they practice, or you have found yourself a godparent, or you've done extensive research within the Black community, it's hidden from a lot of Black people too. A lot of Black people only have access, or I don't even want to say only have access, but mainly have access to this commercialized version. And the trip part is it sells, and so there's certain things that people will carry. Spiritualists will, indulge in because it sells. But at the same time, I think that it's such a disservice to not traditionally know the true workings of root work and hoodoo. And so because of the actions that were seen, it caused it to become more of a closed practice. It almost gave this impression, as it is, especially back then. Black people had a hard time trusting white people. And then we give you a little bit of you witness it. Or as the slave master, you have them partake in creating something for you, and then you take it and you do what you want with it. And so it makes people be like, well, I'm definitely not going to show them. And then here's the funny part. We, younger generation, have been sucked into what society has told us hoodoo is, that we're so quick to run and get like fucking hoodoo spell books, and it don't even be the right information. It's like, yeah, you interviewed a witch doctor, but they didn't give you the accurate answer. They misled you because you, as a white reporter, they don't trust with the true information. So it's misleading. It's very misleading. There was a violation of trust. There was a violation on so many levels of so many things, not just trust, but of so many things. It was just black people were violated and stripped. They were stripped of their culture, of their religion, of their spirit. Well, some of their spirit. Some their spirit didn't break, you know. They attempted to strip their spirit. But now you've stripped them of means, of their own healing means. And it's crazy because, I mean, and I want to say Hispanic people get a bad rep with this too, right? Because in the Native American culture, we hear of shamans and we're not afraid. In the Indian culture, we have Ayurveda and we're not afraid. In the Hispanic culture, they call them brujas, when really they're just practicing their own ancestral lineage. As far as a lot of the things that we're giving out is herbs. And with black people, they called it witch doctors. They called it evil. They called it evil. For some reason, we get a scary rap, black people and Hispanic people, when it comes to the spiritual aspect. You get a scary rap. But yeah, that's the saddest part of all, is that you lost. They succeeded in a sense for a while to displace you in the black community and not allow you to traditionally learn how to heal your mind, body, soul through the use of herbs and nature. And it's really sad. Going through the Ayurveda program, if you watch my earlier videos, I kind of did a video describing how I felt with Ayurveda versus root work and hoodoo work. But going through the Ayurveda program with the information that I already knew as far as African traditional healing systems, they're very similar as far as, you know, what type of herbs do this and what type of herbs do that, right? So it's sad that it's demonized in such a way that black people have lost contact with that. So here's my advice. I think that if you're a part of the African American community, and I don't care what part, like if your mama's black and your daddy's white, you're still a part of the African American community, right? I would, if I were you, I would sit with your grandma or your grandpa or even your mom and dad, because they'll know. My father's grandmother was born into slavery. And so the remedies that she gave to my dad when he was a kid, right? These are all systems of within the hoodoo tradition. These are all natural herbal remedies. She's passed on, and my grandfather has also passed on. But that's why I say you could always sit with your parent and ask them and sit with them and listen. Listen to what they have to say, because this is how you're going to learn the old traditional style. You sit and you listen and you write it down and you ask questions. The thing about the African traditions is that it is an oral based tradition. And so if our elders pass away prior to being able to give us this knowledge, then the tradition dies with them. And if you guys just pause and think about that for a second, it's like I've heard that on TV before, right? Like it will die with them. So you have to sit there and you have to talk to them. And they'll give you a lot of information. Be open to it. Be wise enough to sit there and listen. But yeah, talk to those people and see what they say. And I guarantee you're gonna learn something that you didn't know before. So if you guys want me to talk more on this on a deeper level, let me know. But let me say this before I go. If you have not adequately done research on slavery, if you've never seen the fucking movie Roots, of all things, you have no business, in my opinion, attempting to learn hoodoo or be a part of a hoodoo community, because it's rooted in our ancestors and times of slavery. And so if you're not truly invested in the Black culture, you're just taking it, if you want to learn how to do magic, but you're not interested in the history of it or the culture, if you didn't go to any fucking Black Lives Matter fucking parades, if you don't feel no type of way, understand that it's those energies right there where we have to have a Black Lives Matter parade is why hoodoo became so strong in the first place. So if you're an all lives matter type of person, hoodoo's not for you. Understand that when you're working with hoodoo, you're calling on the ancestors of hoodoo. And if your ancestors were the ancestors that owned these ancestors, and these ancestors might not be the ancestors you want to call on. I mean, I feel like that's just common sense, right? But that's all. That's what I would say. I would say that if you haven't taken the time to learn the history of slavery, if you don't know anything about slavery aside from the fact that it happened to Black people, I don't think that it's even a fair thought that you would think that you should be a part of the practice. I don't. So I feel like because of what happened when you saw a piece of the practice and how people lost their minds, I believe that this is a closed practice. I do. I think that as a root worker, I'm here to help and heal everybody. I am here to, when I say closed practice, I don't mean I would only help the Black community. Not at all. Not at all. I will help anybody that walks through my door. But to share the wealth of knowledge that I've obtained and the stories of my ancestors, that's not something that I would do. The videos that I'll make on here doing certain spells and folk magic and shit like that, I'm showing you things that you can really read in a book if you wanted to be honest with you. They have my twist on them, but I don't feel as though, well, I know for certain what I would not be sharing is that in which my ancestors left me. And again, everybody has their own opinion, you know. But I think the reason why when you try to do a Google search, you get fluff. You don't get real life conjure um, from the internet. You're not going to find it. And if you tell me you did, I'm going to tell you, no, you didn't. So I hope I explained that well. Please feel free to comment. Understand at the same time when you do comment, I'm not about to sit here and argue with you about my beliefs. You know, go argue with your ancestors. Don't argue with me. But that's all. So I hope that that helped in a sense to some people. Now, be very mindful that I am going to be on here sharing about African tradition as far as who the Orishas are and things like that. And by no means do I think that you should know, because it's a beautiful thing, you know, and helping to show just how beautiful it is, I think helps to create and demystify that negative connotation that was put on traditional Black religion. So that's all for me today, guys. Go ahead and leave me a comment if you'd like. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, you know, and do all of that. And you can find me on Instagram too, by the way, at holistically_tuned. I'm there just kicking it. So, yep, that's it, guys. Have a great night.